Here goes my bad tips. G'day from the West, Lucas here, and welcome back to another Footy West video. Today, we are going to be going through my tips for this round of upcoming AFL footy. Before we get into it, if you like what you're seeing here so far, make sure you give us a like, give us a subscribe, it all helps. A lot of footy content, hopefully, particularly West Coast and Fremantle. So stick around for that stuff and get on board if you're not already. But we're going to jump straight into it. This is the first tipping video I've done for the year, so there's not much to discuss previously from previous weeks. I'm currently sitting on 60 overall points, and I think that's probably in the bottom half of the competition this year so far. So I'm not doing great, so do not trust my tips. But we'll go through my tips for this week. I'll do the margin for Thursday, and then I'll just go through and pick the rest of them like you do on ESPN Footy Tips. So the Thursday night clash for this week is Brisbane Lions taking on the Bombers down at the Gabba in Brisbane for Thursday night footy. And this one, I actually think this round is pretty simple, to be honest. On paper, it looks like a pretty easy round to tip, but we know how things have gone this season. Anything is possible. Anyone can beat anyone on their day. So I'm going to go with the Lions, okay? But the Bombers could beat them if it's their day. And if we've seen a couple of less convincing performance from Brisbane lately, a brilliant win over Hawthorn, and it looks like they're back to their best. But we have seen a couple of unconvincing performances from Brisbane, so if they slip back into that against the Bombers, maybe the Bombers will be able to capitalise. I don't know. I don't really see a way for Essendon to win this game. So I'm going with the Lions, and I'm going to pick them by 32 points. The Friday night blockbuster, I like to call it, is Collingwood versus Hawthorn, and at the MCG, so it'll be a packed out G, I would imagine, and this is going to be a very good game. I think Collingwood have got a lot of cattle coming back. They've got Schultz, Pendlebury, Sidebottom. There's probably a couple others in there that I haven't mentioned that are coming back as well for them. So they are massive ins for Collingwood. They are getting stronger by stronger every week, and they're going to be a very hard side to beat. Hawthorn, they look like they've struggled. They sort of had a sugar hit to start the season. I think they started 5-1 or something like that, and they looked good, but did they look good? I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't analysed Hawthorn enough. But it seems like they're starting to sort of slip away in a few key areas. Will Day is a massive out in the midfield for the Hawks, so they're always going to have a battle up against them when they go in the middle against most oppositions every week. So that's a weakness that the Hawks need to address, some midfield depth. I think it'll be a good game. I think the margin could go back and forth a bit, but in the end, I do think Collingwood will be able to get over the line, and get over the line quite well. I'm saying probably about 20-ish points, give or take. So, and the Pies will move to 10-2. So that is a very impressive record heading into their bye, which is coming up soon, maybe next week. So they're looking good, and I don't think their fixture is too hard going into the back end of the season, so they look primed for another tilt at the flag. And then we move to Super Saturday footy, and it is the Gold Coast taking on Fremantle up on the People First Stadium. I'm going to be doing a bit of a look at this game in what's ahead in the West tomorrow. It's a tough game. I mean, Gold Coast, have they beaten someone of quality? You could argue they have. I mean, I think they got over the line against a couple of opposition who have done all right. They got over the line against Adelaide, which is starting to look good. But it was at home, controversial, I don't know. So if they can claim Fremantle, who suddenly look the goods as well, that would be something for them. But Freo as well have come off a brilliant win against GWS and a smacking of Port Adelaide. So both teams are looking good going into this game, so it's going to be a real indicator of where these teams are at. There's a few key areas that each side will have to dominate if they want to win. Again, I'll be previewing that tomorrow. So I'm going to go for now with the Gold Coast Suns. And then we head to Sydney at NG Stadium, the Giants' third game there, would you believe it, just this season. So they're up against the Tigers at home, so you'd think it's probably an easy beat for the Giants. They obviously played West Coast at NG Stadium as well, beat them by about 80 odd points. So you would expect the same kind of thing to happen with Richmond. Richmond will probably put up more of a fight than the Eagles, to be honest. But I don't think there's very much to talk about there. I think the Tigers They're still young. They're still learning. They're still learning, especially to travel. I don't think they've travelled too much this season, so it'll be a big test there. And you would expect the Giants to get the job done comfortably by about 50, 60 points, and get them into some good form going into the middle and the back stages of the season. And then you've sort of got the Saturday night fixture, which is also looking like an interesting one. You've got Sydney taking on Adelaide down at the SCG. And Sydney are going woeful, let's be real. They just haven't got anything going. They have not kickstarted their season in any way, shape or form. Dean Cox just does not have the answers. Maybe, I'm not too sure. Maybe he probably doesn't have the cavalry as well. But injuries can't always be an excuse. And it shows sort of maybe the lack of depth that Sydney have. But they're up against Adelaide at the SCG. So Adelaide haven't been the best travellers, particularly in recent years. I think they've gotten a bit better this year, but still, Adelaide went to Perth and got beaten quite well by the Freo Dockers. So that's going to be a problem for the Crows. Can the Swans get the job done, though? I'm not sure. I think Adelaide just play too well when they're on. So, again, like a couple of other games in this round and throughout the season, if a side is on and the other isn't, they can win the game, regardless if they're favourites or not, or if it's their 18th or 16th or 6th or 1st. It just doesn't matter, really. But I think Adelaide, this is a coming-of-age win for them. I'm going to tip them to beat the Swans, and they are going to be in all sorts, Sydney. So, there's problems for them now. I think they're in there by next week. Or the week after, one of the two. So they've got to look at a good, hard look at themselves. And I'm tipping Adelaide to get it done in a close one. I think Sydney will put up a good fight, but ultimately just not getting the job quite done. So I'm going Adelaide by about 10, 20 points. Then we had only 2 games on Sunday due to 4 teams bye. We've got Melbourne and St Kilda in Alice Springs at Traeger Park. This is an interesting one as well. Melbourne have hit some good form. So you would expect them to carry that on against a pretty disappointing St Kilda, let's be honest. They always disappoint. They're just mediocre for too long, like a couple of other clubs. So I think St Kilda, again, like similarly to the Gold Coast, they'll put up a good fight. But I think Melbourne, their revitalisation has gone a long way into resurrecting their season. Christian Petrarca, he looks back in the goods. He looks dedicated to the club. He looks like he's finding his form again. Clayton Oliver looks to be back on the same track as well. So that's dangerous if you're St Kilda, because their Melbourne Stars are coming into their good form. So I'm going to tip Melbourne, and I'm tipping them by quite a lot. I do think they play quite well at Alice Springs, from memory. They are pretty good up there. So I'm going to say Melbourne by about 30, 40 points. I think St Kilda, there's just so much that they need to address. And that is the end of the round. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I don't even want to talk about this game. West Coast and Geelong from Optus Stadium on Sunday evening. It's a late game, 5:20 bounce down here in Perth. So that's about 7:20 over East. It's because there is a public holiday the next day, WA Day. Obviously, West Coast coming out with their WA Day Guernseys. But I'll talk about this a bit for what's ahead in the West as well tomorrow when I address the West Coast. God help us with that one. I think Geelong are going to blow this one out. Probably. The only way... I see this game going one of two ways. A big Geelong blowout or West Coast miraculously getting over the line. It's not going to be a close Geelong win. If Geelong win against West Coast, which looks likely, they will win by a lot. And Geelong have just got so many areas that West Coast will struggle to address. Obviously, you've got Shannon Neal, Jeremy Cameron, 2 premier key forwards looking like now for the Cats. And West Coast, they just don't have the cavalry back to do it. So that's going to be a interesting point for Andrew McQualter to address over the coming week to try and get something done. Selection will be important for West Coast here. They've shown some good form. They obviously got the breakthrough win against St Kilda. Played not very well against Adelaide. Not bad, but certainly not good. And then they were pretty good against Essendon as well a few weeks ago now. Decent against Melbourne and quite good against the Tigers as well. So they're in some sort of semi-good form. So maybe that'll help them lessen the blow of this one. I don't know. But I'm going to go with Geelong, obviously. And I'm going to go with Geelong by about 50 points. So there are my tips for the week. I don't think there's too many shocks in there. This week is pretty straightforward a week of tipping. I can't really see any upsets happening here. Maybe Sydney could get the job done over Adelaide. Maybe St Kilda could upset the Demons. I don't know. But other than that, I do think it's pretty straightforward. But we'll probably come back to this video in a week's time. And I will have gotten like 2 out of 6. Or 2 out of 7. Who knows? But yeah, pretty straightforward. There are my tips for round 12. Let me know what you guys are tipping. If you're the same as me, what you would change. And yeah, that'll be it for this video. If you liked what you saw, again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell so you don't miss another video. But that is all here today, and I hope to see you again back soon on Footy West.